What is going on, everybody? Good to see K9 Bronco in chat and Sharks already. I agree. Let's go. Let's win the money today. This is a big slate, big contest. We've got the Millionaire Maker. I've got a couple entries in there. I don't even know if we call it the Millionaire Maker, just taking that from poker, I guess. But let's get it today. It's a big slate. Don't forget to smash the like button. We appreciate it. I'm going to run through my stuff. We'll probably go for about 20 minutes because I think we can get through what we want to do, or what I want to do anyway. So look, the teams I have the most exposure to are Pirates, Dodgers, Rangers, and Cardinals. I also like Minnesota, Cleveland, and have some Toronto exposure, but more as a small slate, more as a small stack. But I do like getting some Toronto bats, and the focus though is going to be building more around these Texas, St. Louis, than the mini stack for the Pirates. I don't mind a full stack, but I don't love the lineup that Pirates put out there today. To be honest with you, I don't love the order of it even. So I would consider I am playing more Corbin than I initially intended to, which is not that much. He's not going to be in my Millionaire Maker lineup, but he is in some of my lineups because I don't love what Pittsburgh did in terms of the lineup that they put out there. There's 4 lefties in there, and just not the ideal situation to try and just smash Corbin, which we're hoping they do, obviously. Shave is at minimum cost, obviously going to be popular. Makes a lot of sense. I still like Castillo, even though he's batting 6th now, which I don't like as much. I like Brian Reynolds would be the guy I would use to fill out the mini stack. Those are my favorite 3, but I don't mind if you want to play Brian Hayes, bunch of options there. The Dodgers lineup leaves a lot to be desired, especially considering how poorly they've hit Freeland. Now, the only thing you could say about this, a lot of these guys haven't faced Freeland as much. So Trace Thompson batting 7th is going to be a very popular play. You got Chris Taylor batting cleanup today, so he becomes a much more interesting play. Justin Turner hasn't had any power at all this year, but with the wind blowing out and at 90 degrees in Colorado, it's just hard not to have some interest in these guys just because of the situation, even though Freeland has been pretty good against them. So I'm gonna have some Dodger stacks. Don't get me wrong, but I definitely don't think it's the clear and away you have to play them stack that sometimes it feels like when they're in Colorado. It felt like that yesterday. It didn't work out very well, but a lot better hitting weather today too than yesterday. It was pretty good hitting weather yesterday anyway. Favorite pitchers, the guys I have most exposure to: Rodon, number 1 on DraftKings and FanDuel. I'm playing a lot of JP Sears. I don't love that you got an extreme hitters umpire in that game. It's Oakland, so it evens out a little bit, but the 6,100 price tag is something I'm interested in. I really like Shane Baz. I'm surprised I haven't heard anybody else talking about him. I almost feel like I'm missing something here. You got some strikeout upside against a Milwaukee team that with some power, but also can strike out. That gets to pitch at home in Tampa Bay, a nice pitching environment. I feel like Shane Baz I'm deciding between a 2v2 in my 2,500, just to be honest, right now, between a Shane Baz, Castillo, or Gray. And then instead of Melendez as a one-off catcher, filling out a full 5-man Texas stack with, why can't I think of his name right now? Jonah Heim. And I'm also debating, I could use Jonah Heim with either. I'm just debating which one to go with. Basically, I've got a 4-3-1 that I like quite a bit with Melendez as a one-off, but I have no problem if I want to just turn this into John Gray and Jonah Heim. So that's what I'm sort of doing with that. I like as lower owned pitchers. I'm going to be mixing in some guys. I'm going to throw even though it's extreme hitters umpire. I think it's a decent enough spot for Montez. You do have some strikeouts in that Yankee lineup. Montez can work quickly through innings, so he's somewhat appealing to me. Corbin is one of my weird ones. I mean, not weird. I guess people are on him now. Manaea and Ray are 2 that I thought. I still think Robbie Ray is going to end up with a pretty decent ownership, but Manaea is being completely overlooked here, as is Zach Gallen, and I don't mind taking shots on those guys and Montas as a way to pivot off of some of the chalkier pitchers. Keep in mind, Zach Wheeler also has an extreme hitters umpire in a tough matchup, but you don't also have Acuna in the lineup, so there's a little bit of a boost there. But certainly it makes sense to me that the highest owned pitchers are going to be Rodon and Wheeler. I think Rodon is a pretty good ways safer. I think Robbie Ray has plenty of upside to be there, but I don't love him at a high ownership. So I think that, you could play a Ray and Manaea together, fairly low owned combination, you would think. And I sort of like that as a way to get different, but mostly for the focus guys are going to be Wheeler, Rodon, Spears, and right now I've got Shane Baz at 28%. That's where I'm at. That's what I'm taking some shots on this kid. I think he's got some real talent. Always worried about the leash with any Tampa Bay pitcher, especially the young ones. But I just think I've seen enough decent things out of Baz. He's had a couple tough matchups so far. He got rocked around a little bit by Minnesota's first outing, then was awesome against Baltimore his next outing, and then he had the Yankees. Couldn't quite get the 5 to try and get the win in that one. I believe it ended up being a tie game after the inning, but he pitched pretty well in that game. 6 strikeouts, 4 2/3 innings. I do think that against Milwaukee here, he's worth taking a gamble on. I have no interest in the Yankees. I think you can play any of them as one-offs or small stacks. I don't like stacking against pitchers who don't walk a lot of hitters, even if they give up some power. I don't particularly have a lot of interest in the Yankees. If I name 9 stacks that I like, it probably means if I didn't name the stack, there's nothing wrong with it, the Yankees at all. It's just I'm not going to get there if I'm not naming them as a stack, because I'm not going to ever stack more than 9 teams on almost any slate, basically. So yeah, I wouldn't be stacking the Yankees. In general, it's a terrible thing to stack. People try to do it all the time against Wheeler, against Montas, against these type of pitchers, and it's just a bad decision to do, basically. It's poor strategy. It may work out every now and then, but in general, that's just bad DFS play. That would be what I would say. But I don't mind if you take any one-offs, and Stan, Judge, Trevino at catcher is certainly a viable one-off at 3,200. But yeah, there's no way I'm stacking the Yankees on this particular slate. Again, it could work out. It's just not. I can't stack everybody. The people who everybody thinks if you play 150 lineups, even you can stack everybody. No, you can't. That's just terrible DFS play. If you do, you got to make some commitments. You got to make some decisions, and you got to stick with the guys you really like. I do like Cincinnati and Chicago is the one I didn't mention. I mean, again, you're playing the game environment, right? Like, it's a great game environment. You have anytime the wind's blowing out at Wrigley, and again, 10 miles at Wrigley is like 15 to 20 everywhere else. And today you've got that nice wind blowing out in a warm day in Chicago. It's at 80 degrees over there. But the problem is, like, Castillo, I actually like as a pitching option, and I think that there's upside for him. I think I would be heavier on the Cincinnati side than the Chicago side. I also think that Keegan Thompson, if you wanted to get real frisky, is a reasonable pitching option. It's Cincinnati. We've seen them get lit up by everybody, and Keegan Thompson has done nothing but go out and put up. What's he put up? 55 DK points in his last 2 games total. He's starting to show some signs, and Pittsburgh and Atlanta. So one easy matchup, one tough one, and he looked really good. So I would be willing to gamble on that too, as maybe a way to get a little bit different pitching wise as well. I think there's a lot of guys you can consider. No interest in Houston at all against Carrasco, because it worked once doesn't mean it's going to work again. And yeah, I did a good bullpen behind him. No interest in Houston for me. Again, could always work, just no interest for me. Not going to take a team with one of the lower totals, and Carrasco's a good pitcher. And usually what happens when these teams face each other back to back, you see whatever happens the first outing, you have sort of the opposite thing tends to happen the next outing. These guys are good at making adjustments. So Carrasco struggled the last time against Houston. I think he probably pitches a little bit better tonight than he did last time. Another weird play shouldn't be that weird. Framber Valdez is one of the most consistent pitchers in all of baseball. I think he's the better play if you want to take a pitcher in that game. He's incredibly consistent. Has he even had a bad out? He had one bad outing this year, and that was when he was gearing up, still getting his arm ready. But basically since April, I guess he's had one other bad outing. It wasn't even that bad of an outing. It just only struck out 2 guys. Not a high strikeout guy, and not an ultimate ceiling guy, but a guy you can use to get a little bit different, maybe pairing him with Rodon or something like that, or with one of the Manayas, and hopefully you get your 25 out of those guys, and the other top guys are right around there, and you're saving the money with those 2. So I like that. I do like the Twins tonight. They're not my favorite stack, but I do like them. And as I'll always mention in these situations, you should be ready for pinch hit risk. If Kyle Garlick gets 2 at bats, don't be upset. That's pretty much the way things go a lot of the time here. So Kyle Garlick is the cheap option. You've got to go with Buxton, Correa. It's really hard to pay these prices for Arias, who just doesn't have power, even though he's actually hit a few home runs this year. Not that many, but he's hit a few. He's a really, really good real-life hitter. Not a guy you generally want to spend up for at that price. I would probably lean more like their Urshela down there for cheap. You've got Miranda, Jeffers. I do have some 3 men with Buxton, Garlick, and Jeffers as the catcher. combined with Dodger stacks. That way, you get a little bit different by not playing the Austin Barnes. Not that different. And just for what it's worth, I don't think the Dodgers are going to be as owned as everybody else seems to think they're going to be tonight. On FanDuel, I think they will be. On DraftKings, I think you're going to see them. They won't be as owned as they were yesterday. I think you're going to see mostly the guys in the teens of ownership. And that's not that bad. You know what I mean? And the one guy who's probably going to get really forgotten is Gavin Lux. I would encourage people to try to find a way to play Gavin Lux in your stacks if you wanted to get a little bit different with your Dodger stacks. He's probably the one guy you can really get a single-digit ownership on, probably. Keep firing in questions, guys. I'm here for another 10 minutes or so, and I'm happy to answer and go through anything. I really like this. I don't really know why Texas isn't getting a little bit more love. I know they had a big night last night. It's not always fun to stack after a team scores a bunch of runs, but I do like Texas quite a bit here today. And you could look at it on, let me just see what the ownership I've got here is. I was popped up a little bit from where I was looking earlier. Oh, that's not right. That should be just Texas, not the Dodgers. All right. Texas. You're going to have Smith. You got Smith leading off at 2,400 at third base. Simeon is an expensive price to pay up. Love Corey Seager. The people aren't going to play him because everybody's going to play Trey Turner. He is going to be the highest owned Dodger of Trey Turner, in my opinion. I think it's pretty clear. And I think he's a really good chalk, actually. But, in my stacks, I'm absolutely going to play Josh Smith, Simeon, Garcia, and then probably Seager would be my 4 favorite. I don't mind if you want to include Calhoun, Jonah Heim, Nathaniel Lowe. And even Brad Miller batting 8th, and he's cheap enough. You could take a shot there, but I don't think you need to get that creative. I do think that the Texas stack is very viable. I also think, as I mentioned earlier, that the lack of ownership on the Reds and Cubs is kind of glaring to me. I'm using it a little bit more on FanDuel than I am on DK, where I'm spreading out more lineups. I'm playing 10 in the 150, but on DK, where I'm sort of focusing more on my 2 big lineups, not getting to those. And that's one I'm kind of worried about a little bit, to be honest with you. And I also think that, I don't know. I don't know where I stand on the Corbin should not be a focal point for you, but I do think that he makes sense to mix into some tournaments. And I'm just confused about the Shane Baz stuff myself, personally. I don't really understand why no one's going to play him. I think he's got plenty of upside here. I like the price. Just think it makes a lot of sense to give him a shot. But the Twins and Cleveland are both in play for me. You've got Winder and Pilkington with the team playing a doubleheader, so the bullpen's already probably not at its top peak. I just feel like this is a game that could end up shooting out that no one's really talking about. That's what I've got for these ones. Pretty good hitting weather most of the places across the country. Again, fire on in any questions, and I will be happy to answer them as best I can. Pit stack, Chavez, Cruz, O'Neill, Reynolds. That's fine. Yeah, that works. I prefer Pittsburgh as a 3-man. I have a few of them as 4-men, so I'm totally fine with that. A lot of cheapo Dodgers. Yeah, they're cheap. So it's a funny combination, right? They're cheap, but they're also they put one of the worst lineups they've put probably this whole season out there. And do you want to mess with it? Also, you've got a million pinch hitting guys off the bench. I mean, it's been a long road trip, so I was kind of expecting some guys to get a day off. But you've got Bellinger off the bench is a big, obviously a big bat. You've just got probably 3 guys who may not play more than 5-6 innings, depending on what the score is. But in that case, you're probably not getting there anyway. Top 5 FanDuel pitchers. I am definitely going to use Minaya as a pivot. The obvious number 1 is Rodon. And the thing is, everybody tries to get creative with pitching a lot. And it's really there's times where it's worth it, but you're doing it for ceiling. You're not doing it. You're doing it to try and win the position on FanDuel. So FanDuel, I tend to just play the top guys, Rodon, Wheeler. I do think Framber Valdez is a weird one who probably going to throw a quality start because he usually does. Robbie Ray is going to be lower owned over on FanDuel. So I would say Rodon, Wheeler, followed by, for me, Minaya, then Ray. I don't mind if you want to take a shot with JP Sears again. It's a great matchup. I don't know if he'll get the 6 innings, but he is 6K. That's the one get weird guy I can kind of get behind a little bit. Shane Baz is another one, but I probably won't get the 6 innings, so a little less interesting. So I mean, really, it's going to be the paying up for pitching on FanDuel. I just don't see any reason not to. You can mix in a Castillo in there who has got upside. tough matchup from Charlie Morton, but he's been awesome. Extreme hitters umpire, not ideal, but I don't mind if you want to take that shot. And then, but for me, it's mostly going to focus on Rodon, Manaea, Wheeler, and then I'll just be taking a few stabs with some other upside guys like the Baz. Like even another one he's never faced the team he's facing before is Tariq Skubal. And I think that could be one to get a little bit weird with. All right, guys, firing on any more questions, any more thoughts? The White Sox just being so bad and never having a big game offensively is it just makes it hard to be excited about the idea of playing them. The matchup is fine. The pricing is, and the positions get in the way too. Like you've got Vaughn and Abreu who you'd want to play in your stacks, and they're the same position. So on FanDuel, I would like the White Sox better on FanDuel if I was going to play the White Sox. And I actually think that is a viable route to go is to play the White Sox, but I'm not overly excited about it. And nor am I overly excited about the Angels on the other side. Everybody really loves to play the Angels, and just meant everybody was losing money for about a month straight when the Angels couldn't hit anything. But I think they're fine. I just am not as excited. There's plenty of stacks I could name that I'm not playing that I could see getting to, but I'm just not doing it. I like the St. Louis. I like the Texas. I like the Dodgers. I like the Pirates. And then I want to get a couple of Cleveland, Minnesotas, and some mini stacks of Toronto today against Waka, who's actually been pretty good. But I'd like to get just the power upside for a couple of those bats. Vlad, Chapman, Springer, Teoscar probably being the most viable. But certainly anybody in the lineup makes enough sense in this matchup. So I'm totally good with that. So it's one of those, how creative do you want to be for pitching slates? And do you need to be that creative? Are we all being crazy by not just playing a ton of Rodon and Wheeler, especially Rodon? I think we should be playing Rodon quite a bit. This guy has just been, he's been unbelievably good. And when he gets into trouble, the only real game he had that bad outing was that Colorado game where I think we all played him, and I think people remember that one. But he's been really, really solid. It is a little concerning that he's been in that same pitch range, and I could see just like there's a few BABIP things don't work out your direction, and maybe they keep him in the 90s. Maybe you don't have the 110 upside. I think it's up there. He definitely has that chance to throw 110 pitches. But it would take like a one hitter kind of a thing to try and throw a shutout. And if that works, you're already in great shape anyway. But you probably right into like the fifth if he's at 85 and they're sort of threatening and the game's tight. I could see him maybe not coming out or only getting faced until until a hitter gets on base in the next inning. A little concerning, but overall, just think is a really, really strong play. All right. Looks like there's no more questions. Everything's drying up. Please hit the like button before you get out of here. We appreciate all you guys. And we'll be talking to you guys when we are going to be have $1 million win. And if it's not me, I hope it's Rhodey or Sheets. And hopefully one of us is going to take down $1 million tonight. So that's where I'm at. Top cards, real easy. It's not, you play Goldschmidt, Yepez, Carlson. If you can afford Tommy Edman, if you can get Arenado in, those guys all stand out to me. But again, they're more of a mini stack for me, but I like them as a full stack. I keep comboing them with teams that I can't quite get the positions the way I want, like Texas, for example, which case I want to play Josh Smith at third as my value guy instead of Arenado. So it gets a little bit tricky is what I would say with some of the ways you want to stack it. But Yepez, Carlson, Goldschmidt, I don't mind even going to Donovan at the bottom of the order in a full 5-man. I just think that there's, you've got a righty dominant team against a team with a kind of a shaky bullpen, and then a very a pitcher with some upside and some talent on the other side, but a pitcher with definitely a wide range of outcomes in Braxton Garrett. And it feels like it'll be a tough matchup for Garrett to get through. But I think if you had to say the best ones, it's Goldschmidt, Arenado, and Edman, but it's hard to afford all those guys and then get the stacks you want. So I would say, and also Edman is, I like using some of these, like Seager as my other shortstop or Turner. If I'm combo stacking the Cardinals, I'm probably going to pick those guys over Edman. But I think over on FanDuel, it's a little bit easier to do that. So I don't mind Edman at all. I do like playing Edman. I just am having a hard time actually getting him in with the just now shortstop eligibility only. All right. Anything else, guys, before we get out of here? I'm going to run. And again, please like and subscribe and all that stuff if you haven't already. And let's make some money tonight. Let's make a real killing. This is a fun slate, and lots going to happen. It's going to be some weird team that scores a bunch of runs that no one's on. Happens. But I'm excited about it. And I'm excited to try to win $1 million. We don't get these in baseball very often. So let's go. Let's get lucky, and let's make some money. Good luck to everybody out there. Thank you for being loyal to True DFS, and we will see you guys hopefully at the top of the leaderboards.